Okay.
What we got going on here is we need to replace our backlight. We also had to reseal the windshield. Basically, we're gluing the window into rust. And if you did this right, you make little pads. Here it's a glue-in windshield. You make little pads. Then when they set up solid, you cut them down to the right height, make a little section in there. And there's also little stops you can have that you buy that set in the rubber, but it's a lot of times just use glue. And then these little tabs here are for holding your chrome on, which we pulled the chrome off, and we're going to save the chrome, but we're not going to glue the chrome on. That's a forgone, because we just have rust that we're gluing this to for the most part. So I made the little pads. I see they hadn't fully set up. They're a little squishy, so the backlight here kind of sets in okay just with them being squishy. It just sort of sets in a reasonable position. And while this is not the best, it will actually kind of work. A friend of mine did this many years ago on a truck, and when we're all done, we will have a rubber molding all the way out to where we're catching real material, and it goes over onto it. We'll have to kind of free form and shape stuff, but right now I just want to, before it rains, get enough pumped in here behind it so that it will seal up. If you put this on before it rains, it's okay if it rains on top of it. The urethane actually sets up from moisture. But if it's already wet, you won't get a good bond on the stuff you're trying to stick it to. So anyway, I'm using 3M Window Weld. It's amazing stuff. I put a piece of duct tape in here to stop some of it underneath here and the worst of it, so that it will sort of go around the window. It's not really going to hold anything, but there'll be more rubber stuck to the window at least. And yeah, we'll be back on the project. We can look at the front one here. Looks a lot better. The front one had about 60% contact that wasn't rusted through, so it was just a matter of prying out the miscellaneous silicone, butyl, taking out the chrome and the various ones that they had. But again, this lower edge here is really rusted away. In fact, you can see through the window here where there's a hole in the dash yet along there. So what we'll do with it, we'll bond all the way down to where the air intake comes in, the fresh air intake. The rest of it was pretty solid, and it'll be a little bit less excessive on the amount of rubber, but this one we'll have to bond and make a block that comes all the way over this so it's got enough rubber to hold it in. And it ain't right, but it is what we're doing on this car, because I went through, I've welded those up, fixed them before. It's not going to happen on this poor little car. I just don't have the shop space to work on my toys. And I don't really have the dedication, but it's a fun car. And we'll see it again when we have the windshield and the backlight actually glued in and done. Tube starts out sealed up. You poke the front like anything else. It's got a tab on the back that you pull out, so they keep moisture away from it until you're ready to use it. I've had the stuff still work a week later than when I first started a tube, but generally you start a tube and you pretty well use it, or don't. And what is supposed to be done is you're supposed to, on a window like this, supposed to make a nice liquid bead underneath there that the window sets into. You should put some glue on top of these little blocks, and everything will just position directly, perfectly. It's not going to happen in this case. It's not going to happen because we don't have the blocks dried and set to where it has a perfect place to set. Also, because we really don't know how much to build on all this garbage down here to make it seal to. It's not being done right, but it's being done. This sealer is kind of expensive. Gonna have, by the time we're done with this repair, you can see it running in behind the glass there where it's actually doing some sealing. You sort of got to gauge when you're first doing this wrong to where it's sealing all of the metal you got inside, but not running way far into the interior of the car itself. First time I used this sealer and decided that it was pretty good stuff, was the only stuff they said to use, was 1976. I did this, actually no, it was 75 yet. I did this on my 68 Malibu that had a rusted out front window. And that time I did do the welding, put in the new little studs for holding the clips, did everything. I built up a little extra here in the corner already last night also, where I knew there was just nothing. I'd made some little strings that went across the space where there was no metal there at all, so that we would have something to pump our glue into. And at that time, the stuff was just over $6 a tube. The tubes I just bought were just under 30. So there is some things that happen as you spend decades of time in between. And as Nixon took us off of the gold standard, not too much before that, we were on a partial reserve only previous, which also meant that it was already not honest money. Anyway, this is what we're going to do, and this stuff underneath is more of a bedding for the glass to set on than really gluing it in as much as it's supposed to. We'll gain some, we'll get a little bit of hold, but the big thing that's going to hold it is going to be the rubber that we glue in over the top of it that bonds to the good material on the car. We want to get all we can, but it's too much work to go through and fix it all up right. It was a bad idea when they first did these. Weld-in windshields are done on a lot of cars, but they normally do them today so that your glue-in windshield is it has kind of seals it all up when you glue it. These ones, there was a lot of metal area that was left exposed that was normally minimally, if painted at all, areas, and the chrome hid it, so you didn't see it as it started to rust until you started getting a rain shower coming down inside the car. Which, if it wasn't for this failure in design and a rain shower coming down, I would not have gotten my '68 Malibu, because my sister really, really liked her car. It was just the rain shower she couldn't stand, especially since she was doing office work at that time. Wanted to be somewhat presentable instead of wearing a swimming suit to work so that she could have her other clothes dry. It was pretty wet.
Well, how much did she sell you the car for?
$295.
Nice.
I don't know why we settled on $295, but that was the price. Maybe it was all I told her I could afford. You know, I honestly do not know. Car had just under 100,000 miles on it then, and it wasn't really using any oil. The lifters were a little bit noisy. It probably could have used a new cam, but I was not that much of a diagnostics at that time.
What ended up happening to it?
What ended up happening to that poor little car was I took it, used it as a high school kid would after I got through. I took it, totally painted it, did a new interior, you know, Mickey Mouse high school style. I bought rugs at a carpet store, kind of sawed it, put them together as best I could, and made it into a presentable car though. And then what happened to it next was I saw the car that I didn't even know. It was kind of like when you see one of those girls and you're just like in love at first sight until she talks. But I saw a car that I just fell in love with. It was a '68 Camaro SS. It had 4-speed, it had side pipes with 4 exhaust tubes coming out of each exhaust pipe, chrome all over it, and I could buy it for $850. So in the meantime, my sister had decided that she really liked the Malibu that she had sold, and she wanted to buy it back. So she sold her Maverick that she had bought, which turned out to be kind of a problem car. Had good brakes, but the rest of it was a problem car. It was a 6-cylinder model, never really had power. It had a lot of rattles. It wasn't as bad as she was perceiving it, but she just didn't care for it as much as her Malibu, so she bought the Malibu back from me, actually. And I don't remember what she paid. I know it was over $1,000 because I had put a lot into it. I don't remember what she paid me. And I know that paid for the $850 for the Camaro. It was actually a L78 model, 425 horse, which actually, technically in 68, they rated it as a 375 horse, but it's the identical engine to a 67. No parts difference at all, but they decided to change their method of rating the horsepower. So I still like calling it a 425 horse, because if it was a 67, that's what it would have been. But being a 68, they actually rated it originally as a 375, which was good for me because that allowed me to buy insurance.
Yeah.
If it would have been a 67, I actually could not have gotten insurance on it with the exact same engine and transmission. So that was good. And again, back to the Malibu, my sister's boyfriend was driving it on ice, which he was not familiar with, and it went into a ditch. So then after it went into a ditch, I ended up with the car again, mostly, but my sister's boyfriend wanted the engine to put in one of his 57 Chevys. So he put it into the 57 Chevy, and I don't think it ever did 115 again once it went into the 57 Chevy. I rode with him at about 105 on bald tires once, but I don't think that engine ever went 115 again. And it really shouldn't have at first, but there's other stories about that. Anyway, so it got parted out. Most of it went to scrap. I tried saving the deck lid for putting on my convertible, because I had a 68 Malibu convertible at that time that I spent 3 years putting together. And that was a really nice car, but I found out that the convertible deck lid and the hardtop deck lid are about a ½ an inch difference in length.
Oh.
Because of the room, they just squeezed room everywhere for the top to fold down into. You wouldn't think that they'd care that much, but it was a ½ an inch to maybe an inch. There was no way. I had it all painted to match the car, everything ready to put it on because it was better. Then I realized I had to go back and take the original convertible one, straighten it out for its little dents, and paint it. And anyway, so that was the end of the car. I don't remember what. Oh, the automatic out of it. It went into Hohalter. Greg Hohalter bought the transmission out of it. It was Power Glide because he wanted to put it in his rail, dragster rail.
Oh.
So the transmission, I have no doubt, went over 115 after that. Yes. I don't remember what he was running, but I'm sure he went over 115 with the transmission. So while the engine slowed down, the transmission sped up after the car's demise.
And for once, it's not a mechanical problem.
Uh-oh, I'm gonna need another tube.
Yep, you are out.
Yeah, I bought 6 of them today. After using 2 yesterday, oh, it's going a little more yet. After using 2 yesterday, I was like, I was gonna buy 4. I actually had 4 bought off of the internet because my local dealer was telling me it was $43 a tube. And I said, there's an alternate dealer I used. Let me go check with them, and they only wanted 29 something.
Yeah.
So then I canceled my internet order when I came back here. And went down today. Instead of having the 4 tubes from the internet I was going to get, I bought 6 in town. I probably will use all 6.
Here you can see the final result with the window seal. It's been smoothed out, pressed in on both sides. It's not pretty, but it'll keep water getting in, and that's really what counts. Here you can see it on the front windshield. Keep any more water from getting in and contributing to this situation.